All right, Army people, we need to be on time. Oh, wow, that happened quickly. Thank you. I know that we're not all Army here, but welcome to the Military Women's Memorial on a beautiful, sunny, albeit cold, February morning. Today is, I'm going to quick shout out, Joe, I hope you're watching, my son, who was born at 97th General Hospital, Frankfurt, Germany, on this date in 1983. Happy birthday. And the nursing staff there was phenomenal. Welcome, everyone, to Hands, Head, and Heart, 125 years of Army nursing. This is a very special edition of our Memorial Serving in Strength series. And Hands, Head, and Heart is a phrase from a World War II Army nurse film describing how she works patiently with her hands, head, and heart. And it seemed fitting for this very special event. First, many thanks to our sponsors who without them we could not do these kind of wonderful events. Tri-West, represented today by Senior VP for Communications and Advocacy, Donna Hoffmeyer, Ruth Vetter, Chief Legal and Compliance Officer, Sajay Nichols, VP for Clinical Operations, and Dr. Keita Franklin, VP of Integrated Health Strategies, and retired Army Brigadier General, Dr. Don Bradshaw, Chief Medical Officer. Maximus, represented by Dr. Kathy Spangler and Kathy Muha, Johnson & Johnson, represented by Jonathan Lone and Tifri Daughtry, AARP, Optum Serve, WPS Health Solutions, and Humana Military, represented by Alex Ware and Lachelle Lewis Fowler. Thanks to their generosity and commitment to military women's health, we have the privilege to share with you over the next 90 minutes this incredible group of experts you're going to hear from, and it's not me. While I am proud to wear this RN jacket today, I'm a retired Chief Warrant Officer 5 military intelligence soldier and a civilian nurse. I can't even come close to expressing how very honored we are to be a small part of the celebration of this major milestone in Army nursing. Not only is it a major milestone for Army Nurse Corps history, but for military history, American history, and women's history as well. Honoring the service and telling the stories of women who have served is our primary mission here at the Memorial. And today we're proud to have the Army Nurse Corps also fulfill that mission. Those of us who wear or have worn the uniform, nurse and non-nurse, are well aware of the debt we owe to those women who 125 years ago stepped up, took an oath, donned the uniform of an Army nurse, and said, "Here I am, send me." Even though they were not given rank, their pay was minimal, there was no retirement or pension plan, they couldn't be married, and on and on. In the face of it all, they just wanted to serve. On behalf of the thousands, the millions of women who've had the privilege to serve in America's defense, because of these trailblazers, I say thank you. As pioneers, they led the way, shaped the profession of military nursing, and defined a path for generations of leadership and innovation in military medicine across every branch of service. So again, welcome and thank you to all who are attending here at the Memorial, as well as everyone that is joining us virtually. Thank you for taking the time to stream in. And also for those of you that are here in person, we will be loading this up in the next week or so to our YouTube channel. So check out the Military Women's Memorial YouTube channel, and you'll find more great stories about Army nurses and other branches of service. We do have an Air Force nurse in there, Joe, just so you know. But I want to introduce to you some of our very special guests, and I'm not getting all of them, I'm certain. But we do have today retired Army Lieutenant General Dr. Telita Crosland, former director of the Defense Health Agency with us, ma'am. Retired Army Lieutenant General Patricia Horoho, the 43rd Surgeon General of the Army. Retired Army Major General Dr. Joe Caravallo, President of the Henry Jackson Foundation. Retired Army Major General Jimmy Keenan, the 24th Chief of the Army Nurse Corps. Army Brigadier General Jamie Burke, the current Chief of the Army Nurse Corps, and Mrs. Burke. Army Reserve Brigadier General Kathleen Clary, Assistant Surgeon General for Mobilization and Reserve Affairs, Office of the Surgeon General. Retired Army Brigadier General Clara Adam Ender, the 18th Chief of the Army Nurse Corps. You'll hear more from her a little later. Army Colonel Jody Schroeder, the current Deputy Chief of the Army Nurse Corps, and my battle buddy, retired Command Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Joanne Bass, a Women's Memorial Foundation Honorary Board Chair. Thank you for joining us. And now it's my honor to bring to the podium Mr. Jonathan Lone, Vice President of MedTech Center Finance at Johnson & Johnson and the executive sponsor of the Johnson & Johnson Veterans Leadership Council. Jonathan has leadership experience across Johnson & Johnson's innovative medicine, MedTech, supply chain, and global services organizations. I don't know how you do all that, but I'm glad somebody does. Prior to joining Johnson & Johnson, he served as a surface warfare officer in the Navy. He is deeply committed to supporting the military-connected community and advancing leaders who serve those who have served. He will be introducing our keynote speaker, retired Army Lieutenant General Dr. Telita Crosland. Please welcome Mr. Jonathan Lone to the podium.
Wow, what an honor to be here today, and thank you so much for the very kind introduction and the opportunity to be part of the ceremonies today. Johnson & Johnson is honored to be a part of the celebration of 125 years of Army nursing. Johnson & Johnson has a long-standing commitment to supporting military service members, veterans, and their families dating back to the Spanish-American War in 1898. Support for healthcare workers, and specifically nursing, is a fundamental part of Johnson & Johnson. Its roots go back to the company's founding and continue today. Nurses are featured in the first paragraph of our credo and are key to our purpose. For more than a century, we've advocated for nurses as vital to patient outcomes, to healthcare, and to our company. Notably, our campaign for nursing, which began over 20 years ago, contributed to 1 million new nurses entering the profession through a combination of scholarship, leadership programming, media, and long-term strategic partnerships. Unwavering support for nursing extends to our employees as well. In support of today's celebration of 125 years of Army nursing, I thought it was appropriate to share a brief historical story about one of our employees, Catherine Hanna, who is a nurse by training and worked for Johnson & Johnson in the early 1900s. When the United States entered World War I, the Red Cross put out a call for nurses, and Catherine, like so many others, volunteered. As a field nurse for the U.S. Army, Catherine was first sent to General Hospital No. 6 at Fort McPherson in Georgia, where she was quickly promoted to head nurse and superintendent. She was later sent to Vladivostok, Siberia. Can you imagine that posting in World War I? We think we're having a cold day today. I mean, imagine what that must have been like. And she was serving there as with the American Expeditionary Force as Chief of Nursing for the Evacuation Hospital, where she and fellow nurses treated wounded soldiers and those suffering from Spanish influenza. Military nurses, like Catherine Hanna, should be honored and celebrated. Today, as we honor 125 years of Army nursing, we celebrate a legacy of service that has always required skillful hands, disciplined minds, and courageous hearts. Our keynote speaker, Lieutenant General Telita Crosland, U.S. Army retired, embodies that legacy. A physician and lifelong Army leader, General Crosland has served more than 35 years in uniform, culminating as director of the Defense Health Agency, where she was responsible for the care of 9.5 million beneficiaries worldwide, leading over 130,000 healthcare professionals, and stewarding a $61 billion military health system. She has led military medicine at every level, from combat care to global health systems transformation, guiding the military health system through modernization, digital innovation, a global pandemic, and always with a focus on readiness and people. Most importantly, for today's moment, General Crosland has consistently championed Army nurses as leaders, innovators, and essential for mission success. Please join me in welcoming a leader who honors the past and is shaping the future of military nursing, Lieutenant General Telita Crosland.
Good morning. Thank you for the kind introduction. Distinguished guests, fellow leaders, colleagues, friends, it is truly an honor to stand with you today at the Military Women's Memorial on sacred ground to commemorate 125 years of Army nursing. This anniversary is more than a milestone. It's a reminder of a truth the Army has known for more than a century. Army nurses are foundational to Army medicine, indispensable to our nation's security, and transformational to the profession of nursing itself. Today, I want to reflect on that impact through three lenses: the Army, the nation, and the profession, guided by enduring values of hands, head, and heart. When Army Nurse Corps was formally established in 1901, it marked the first official entry of women in the United States military. That moment was shaped by Dr. Anita Newcomb McGee, whose vision professionalized military nursing, established standards for selection, training, and deployment that align nursing directly with military readiness. From the very beginning, Army nurses were not peripheral to medicine. They were central to mission success. During World War I, more than 20,000 Army nurses served, many close to the front lines, setting standards for trauma care, infection control, and mass casualty management. By World War II, the Corps' influence expanded under leaders like Florence Blanchfield, the first woman commissioned as an Army officer. Under her leadership, Army nurses gained permanent commission status, firmly embedding nurses into Army structure. This was not symbolic progress. This was operational necessity. From Korea through Vietnam and into modern conflicts, Army nurses rapidly advanced evacuation, trauma stabilization, and combat casualty care. Innovations that still define military and civilian trauma systems today. Army medicine works because Army nursing leads. Army nurses bring strategic advantage, having always served beyond the battlefield. In humanitarian crisis, public health emergencies, global instability, Army nurses represent the United States with clinical excellence, discipline, and compassion. A defining example of this national reach is Brigadier General retired Claire Adams Ender, whose career exemplifies the influence of Army nursing leadership well beyond uniform service. As the 18th Chief of the Nurse Corps and later the first Army nurse to serve as a White House Fellow, Brigadier General Ender demonstrated how nursing leadership informs national policy, executive decision-making, and strategic health priorities at the highest level of government. And nurses do not simply respond to crisis. They shape systems before the crisis arrives. And that truth was further embodied by Lieutenant General retired Patty Horoho, whose tenure as the 43rd Army Surgeon General of the United States Army reflected the full maturation of Army nursing leadership at the enterprise level. Under her leadership, readiness, resilience, and human performance were elevated as strategic imperatives, not afterthoughts. She reinforced the critical lesson Army nurses have long understood. The health of the force is indispensable from the strength of the nation. That is strategic advantage delivered through nursing leadership. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of the Army Nurse Corps is its impact on the profession of nursing itself. Army nursing expanded what it means to be a nurse, not only a caregiver, but a clinical decision maker, not only a practitioner, but a commander and a strategist, not only a supporter, but an organizational leader. Long before healthcare systems routinely placed nurses in executive roles, Army nurses were already commanding hospitals, leading large teams, and managing complex clinical operations. Leaders like Florence Blanchfield, Claire Adams-Ander, and Patty Horoho demonstrate across generations that nursing leadership is not an exception to the rule. It is the rule when mission success depends on people. The Army Nurse Corps proved decade ago that nursing leadership is a force multiplier, not a supporting function. That legacy continues to shape civilian healthcare, academic nursing, public health, and global health leadership today. As we look ahead, the operational environment is changing. Future conflicts and crises will demand integrated digital health, AI-enabled clinical decision-making, continuous health monitoring, precision and proactive care. But even as technology accelerates, the core truth remains unchanged. Technology will never replace nurses. It will only amplify. The future of Army medicine will still depend on hands, skilled, steady, decisive, head, judgment, adaptability, leadership, heart, moral courage, compassion, and service. Those qualities have sustained Army nursing for 125 years, and they will sustain generations to come. From Anita Newcomb McGee to Florence Blanchfield to Claire Adams-Ander to Patty Horoho to the nurses serving today and those to yet answer the call, Army nursing is a legacy of leadership forged in service. For 125 years, Army nurses have carried the weight of war, the hope of healing, and the trust of a nation. They have shaped Army medicine, they have strengthened the nation, they have transformed the profession of nursing. Hands, head, and heart. That is Army Nurse Corps, an enduring gift of selfless service. Thank you.
Thank you, General Crosland, for those wonderful remarks. We are enormously grateful for your participation in the Memorial's tribute. The prestige and distinction that you bring to the Memorial's Serving and Strength Series in general, and this Hands, Head, Heart program in particular, is very appreciated. We hope you'll join us for future events. We have a lady in the very front row here, Susan Banks. Hello, my dear. Thank you for being with us. When did you serve? '70 through '92. You're an Army nurse. Thank you for your service. You couldn't see her look of absolute, utter surprise. That's why I keep tissues in my pocket. I don't apologize for the tears. It means my heart still works. I've been a hospice nurse, I've been a NICU nurse, I've been a geriatric nurse. And I love the geriatrics. The older, the better, the sweeter. The way people feel about puppies and babies, that's how I feel when I see a 95-year-old person. They just break my heart. I love it. So our next person isn't even close to 95, but it is our distinct honor to name, well, actually, I'd like to ask Dr. Don Bradshaw, Chief Medical Officer at Tri-West Healthcare Alliance, to assist me with a very special presentation to a very special Army nurse. Dr. Bradshaw has extensive clinical and leadership experience in military medicine, veterans health, and civilian health care. He joined Tri-West leadership team in 2023 and is responsible for directing, coordinating, and overseeing all clinical operations to support the healthcare needs of our nation's military and veteran communities. Prior to joining Tri-West, he served in the Army, retiring as a brigadier general. Looking for me. Come on down. We'll just have you stand right there, sir. Yes, it is. It is now our distinct honor to name Brigadier General Clara Adams Ender a Military Women's Memorial Living Legend, and to present her with a Living Legend proclamation and the unique Living Legend medallion. Hold on a moment. I got a few things to say about her, and she will too. The Living Legend program recognizes military women whose stories of service provide inspiration and example for all to appreciate. These are the stories of ordinary women who, by choosing to serve, did extraordinary things for their country and our freedoms. Their stories, when brought to light, serve to increase public awareness of women's contributions to America's national defense. The proclamation reads, whereas the Military Women's Memorial is the only national memorial dedicated to preserving and promoting the history of women's military service. Whereas the Military Women's Memorial is dedicated to honoring women's contributions to the defense of our nation and inspiring the next generation of leaders through the example of our great women patriots. Whereas we engage the public in the history of military women's service through the ages by preserving the stories of individual women who have served from the Revolutionary War to today. Now, therefore, I do proclaim that retired Brigadier General Clara Adams Ender, U.S. Army Nurse Corps, is to be hereafter recognized as a Military Women's Memorial Living Legend for her 34 years of dedicated service to the nation as an Army nurse, including 4 years as the 18th Chief of the Corps. A nurse, teacher, mentor, leader, and innovator, she instituted practices and procedures that significantly advanced nursing, Army nursing, opportunities for Army nurses, and Army medicine overall. Her dedication to serve during peace and war paved the way for the women and men serving today and those who will serve in the future. And I am deeply honored I get to sign that. Signed, Phyllis J. Wilson, RN. Hang on, we're not done. There's a few more. You realize you get an extra minute. Go ahead. These are once-in-a-lifetime opportunities.
Thank you very much for this honor today. And thank you to And thank you to Phyllis. And I see there's a legacy room back there for General Vaught, who envisioned this memorial to women in the service. She was Air Force, and I never let her forget that. I never let her forget that she chose the wrong service. But it's all right. We just accept her anyway. She was a mentor of mine of years ago, and I will never forget the times that we had and together. I'm remembering this morning a young lady who was 90 years old who received an award from an association, and it was a legacy award that she was getting at the time. And the newspaper was there, and the reporter asked her, now first, congratulations on having gotten this award. Tell me, what do you envision as your future in having gotten this award? What will you do next? And she looked at that person and smiled and said, the first thing I envision about my future is that it will be very brief. We have to know where we are at various times in our lives. You know, this morning, I sit down and I write papers and I write notes and that type of thing, and then I ruminate about what I'm going to say. But this morning, it was on my mind to tell you how come I kept on being an Army nurse. See, and when I came in the Army, I was an enlisted person in the reserve, and the Army had a shortage of nurses at that time. Y'all hear that? That sound familiar? Done it many times. We've done it many times, too many times, and that's because we never fix it for good. I always ask people, do you ever hear of Westport closing? That's because it never closes. Do you think they always need 500 cadets to come on active duty? No, they don't. But they treat that system like an accordion, and that's how you got to do it. Whenever you need more, you can expand it. Whenever you need less, then you contract it. And that's the way it's supposed to work. If you close it, as they have for nurses many, many times, it takes 7 years to get another program going. And that's what you have to understand. So we can do nursing in this country. We can fix it for good if we decide that we're going to have a nurse academy and treat it like an academy. Yeah. That's just my never to be humble opinion. I'm going to tell you 2 more things. One of them had to do with how come I stayed in Army nursing. My first assignment, and I'm sure there's some folks here, as a matter of fact, I met some of them today, who were lieutenants at various times. And, you know, lieutenants, when I was chief nurse at Walter Reed, I used to always go and see the lieutenants. And I used to tell them, I'm going to meet you either on evening duty or night duty, because that's what's going to happen to you. The people are going to put you on those shifts. And so they would be on those shifts, and I'd go and meet them in the places. I was this particular morning the head nurse on a unit, and in that particular head nurse position, I had to take care of 3 hospital corpsmen at that time, and we were running ICU at Fort Dix, New Jersey, and we also ran the recovery room, and sometimes we ran both at the same time with us going back and forth. Having done that, this particular morning, we got in a young man from the emergency room. He had been shot, and they told us that he was coming up, and he came up, a big fella, in the bed, and the corpsman said to me, "Ma'am," he said, "what's his branch of service?" I said, he's a PFC. I said, he must be an Army person. And he had never spoken to us before that time, but that brought a rise out of him, and he said, "I'm a Marine." And I said, "Well, all right." And when we got him settled in that bed, he finally told me the story of what happened to him. He and a buddy were on guard duty. He was coming on, his buddy was leaving. And as they get ready to go and exchange guard duty, they call out. The one who is exchanging guard duty said, "Halt, who goes there?" And the response from the oncoming person is, "I am thus and so, whoever I am," give his name and rank, and said, "Reporting for duty." Whenever it was his turn to respond, he said nothing. And the outgoing person said again to him, "Halt, who goes there?" And he didn't answer. And he leveled his .45 as he was supposed to do, and he shot him. Just missed his heart by a couple of inches. And I learned that morning that over and above being an Army nurse, that someday I may have to be a mother, a sister, or any of those things, but to make sure that the troops, you take care of the troops and they cut out the horseplay so that it doesn't happen. He was so sorry, and he wanted to make sure that his buddy was never, ever charged because it was his fault that that happened. And those kinds of things can go on at any point in time because we deal with a bunch of young people, but they have to grow up very quickly sometime. That's how come I stayed on being an Army nurse. And I'm going to say to you, thank you very much for having been here today and having been a part of this particular situation. I spent a lot of time, I joined the Army 67 years ago today. This year, so I've been hanging around the Army for a long time. I thank you all for being here. Thank you for all those Army nurses who are proud to care and have served with me at various times and didn't serve with me. It's all right, yes. It's wonderful being here with you. Yes. Thank you.
Well, that is one thing we've always learned. Clara is Clara is Clara. It's now my personal pleasure. Well, Susan needs to talk to Clara. There you go. They served together. It's now my personal pleasure and great honor to bring to the stage The 43rd Surgeon General of the United States Army and former Commanding General of the United States Army Medical Command, retired Lieutenant General Patty Horoho. We're going to talk. All right, never mind. I'm just coming on down.
Come on down. Are these on, or do we need to do something? Okay. Well, hello there. Happy 125th anniversary to everybody. And it's from this side, it is so humbling when you look, seriously, it's like just a sea of all these people that have either served in Army nursing or supports Army nursing. So thank you very much.
We've all been touched by Army nursing. If you've been in the Army for more than a minute, you've been touched by Army nursing. So we're going to start with a very brief overview of Patty's illustrious career. We talked a little bit about it. One of the things we did, go to our YouTube channel, y'all, and find the interview I did with Patty Horoho. One of the things on the outtakes was I was stationed at Fort Bragg at the same time she was stationed at Fort Bragg when you were the chief of the emergency department at Womack when we had the plane crashes on the tarmac. Let's kind of jump to that part of Army Nursing 101 because I want to launch into, it's the 25th anniversary this year of 9/11. And some of the things, everything happens for a reason, and you don't know at the moment that you're doing it when a mass casualty event happens at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and all of these horribly injured troops come showing up at Womack in the emergency department. You might have done some sampling on a mass casualty. What was it like as being the chief of that department when that happened?
Yeah, thanks. I have to back up real quick to answer that just because at the University of Pittsburgh, I was pursuing my master's in trauma nursing, and my very first master's thesis was supposed to be critical incident stress debriefing, and I had 60 type pages, which shows my age, so 60 type pages of research, and we ended up not getting enough patients. So then I did another research study, and it was 60 type pages, and it was going to be on burn care. And they ended up firing a lot of the trauma surgeons, and I wasn't able to get enough patients to do that. So I was on my third, and I was nervous I wasn't going to graduate in the timeline. And so they allowed me to do a research paper on the comparison of two different burns. And the reason why I share that is when I went to Fort Bragg as my utilization assignment, I really looked and thought, okay, how do you improve an environment? And we didn't have a mass casualty plan. And so one of the things that everybody came together, Cape Fear Valley, Pope Air Force Base, the fire department, the hospital, and put together this mass cal scenario. And it was going to be in April of 1994, 2 planes crashing, multi-trauma. And in March 23rd of 1994 at 14:15 in the afternoon, Sergeant Phil Layton came running in and said, Captain Horoho, we've got planes that crashed and we've got casualties coming. I said, oh, that's our exercise. He said, no, this occurred. What had happened on that day is an F-16 actually was going to collide with another plane in the air. So pilots ejected. It then careened in the ground and hit a C-130, C-130 or C-141. And there were 500 paratroopers on the ground. 50,000 gallons of fuel exploded. A fireball went across. We had 134 burn victims come to our emergency room in less than 15 minutes. It was the scoop and run. Their clothes were burned off. People did it on this, brought them in on the sidecar of a motorcycle, deuce and a half bodies stacked on top of each other. And I really believe that if I had not gone through the challenge of those 2 different theses, the critical incident stress debriefing and the burn, I would not have been ready to be able to respond along with the entire team that responded. And before I say more, I have always honored Sergeant Daniel Price whenever I've spoken about this, because Sergeant Daniel Price was an African-American soldier who was near Specialist Winfield, who was a Caucasian soldier. They didn't know each other. And when this occurred, he picked her up, he threw her on the ground, he jumped on top of her, he whispered in her ear and said, "Run and run now," and she ran. And when she looked back, he had taken the brunt of the fireball. And she told me this when we had all these patients outside and you're talking to your patients. And the reason why I always honor him is that he is the epitome of the American soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine, where we are willing to give up our life for someone we don't know to preserve our democracy. And it has remained imprinted in my heart to this day.
Wow. Okay. I have tissues.
I've got my sleeve. No, I'm just...
Well, you good soldiers, we know what the sleeve is for. So that's 1994. I was there. I was jumping out of airplanes that same time frame. And when you think about it, only 7 years later, you're now in the Pentagon. You're working. We're seeing what has happened up in the Twin Towers in New York City. And tell a little bit about how you knew the Pentagon was struck and what you did next.
I did have someone call me one time and said, "Hey, ma'am, I just want you to know I watch your career." And I thought, okay, that's a little strange. And he said, "I just want you to know that wherever you are, I never want to be, because wherever you go, wherever you go, bad things happen." So. But 9/11 was assigned in the Pentagon and was in Assistant Secretary of the Army for Manpower and Reserve Affairs, so it was a policy job. And that morning, read the book, God is My CEO, coming into work just to kind of get grounded, and was just coming out of my office with, I'll never forget, with a piece of paper that I was going to go down the hallway. And I heard this voice just like you and I are talking right now that said, "Don't go down there." And I went, okay. And I crossed the hall to the Congressional Liaison Office where Kathy Abel and Billington was, and said, "What are you doing?" And they said, "Well, we're watching the Twin Towers get attacked." And someone in the hallway yelled out and said, "The Twin Towers are being attacked." And they told me that I looked at them and said, "There's going to be a series of attacks across the United States and we're next." And I literally stepped into my office and the whole building just shook. And you could feel it, and I thought, okay, we just got attacked. And so ran to the front of the building, and when I ran, there was just this big gaping hole. The fire hadn't started yet coming out there, so it was just black smoke. There was plane debris everywhere. A Master Sergeant Sepulveda was outside. He had just left the building, and he literally watched the plane go into the building. And we had a young Specialist Cahill, who saw the fireball, was on vacation, had his aid bag, and this is where I think God just intervenes, had his aid bag. He ran 2 miles with that aid bag, and that was literally the first supplies that we had at the impact site. And people were doing heroics of bringing people out of the building, and Lieutenant Colonel Marilyn Wills, tiny petite female, carried another person on her back as she crawled out of the G1 space and pushed her out the window. General Webster, who I didn't know, and now we're very good friends, but on that day, he was going in and out of the building. It had burned the pants, the side of his pants, and he gave his belt so we could use it as a tourniquet. The heroics on that day are something that, one, made me very proud to be an Army Nurse Corps officer, made me very proud to be an American. And I think what I learned at Fort Bragg and the deployment in Haiti allowed an instant reaction on that day, and nursing training and readiness is something that is inherent in what we just do. It's not a task, it's who we are, it's how we live our lives, and it's how we're able to do the responding that we do across our career.
Okay, now let's talk about Walter Reed. That's one of the
Okay,
places
wow,
that
you're
you
just
said
like-
you're real. I know, wherever there's trouble, she's there. But she fixes it. That's the great part. She doesn't just, wring her hands at it. But with Walter Reed, there was how many investigations? There were so many things going on when you took the lead there to correct some of the shortfalls. Talk about that.
Walter Reed was supposed to be a one-year assignment, and I was supposed to be going to command in Longstool Regional Medical Command, and I went into the chief nurse position about 3 months after being there when everything broke at Walter Reed. And we had 42 investigations, 4 unannounced joint commissions, a presidential task force, Dulce Shalala. I can't tell you how many members of Congress and media and everybody was there. And we had the worst customer service in all of Department of Defense because General Cody came up and pointed his finger in my chest and said, "You have the worst customer service in all of Department of Defense." And he said, "You have a year to fix it." And in the midst of all of that, I have to tell you, the team there leaned forward and restored, I think, the respect of our nation. And the way that they did that was really, I think, innovating at the speed of the problem, because in the middle of that, General Cody said, "You have 24 hours to come up with a plan on how we as an Army are going to take care of our warriors." And literally, in less than 23 hours, Chuck Callahan and I, as we were walking down the stairwell of the hospital, many are here that supported what was going on in the change for Walter Reed, came up with the triad of care. And what I would say is that the Nurse Corps really rose to the occasion. In less than 36 hours, we had 23 nurses on the ground from all across the country that came in to help become nurse case managers to support the triad of care, which was a primary care manager, a nurse care manager, and then a squad leader. And that rolled out across our entire Army, and it's how we provide warrior care. And by the end of the year, Walter Reed actually won the best customer service out of all of Department of Defense. I have to brag on him. It was amazing.
So during your time in uniform, the transformations, I mean, even for myself, I remember when we used to calculate drip rates. How many of you remember calculating drip rates, right? See, that was a huge transformation for me. I'm good at math, but I always was worried that maybe somehow somebody was going to roll that just a little bit, and suddenly I'm walking in and I'm seeing like the whole thing's infused in 20 minutes. I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I just done? So many changes in just bedside nursing care. But what would you say for the entire Army Nurse Corps? What are some of the transformations you've seen in the last 20, 30, 40 years?
Yeah, I think if I could sum it up maybe in one line, and then I'll give some examples. But I think nursing went from supporting the fight to really being integral to the fight. And I think that's what we've seen across every aspect of all of these 125 years. When you look at bedside nursing, and then when we looked at the patient care and touch system of taking nurse method analysts, informaticists, research nurses, and driving that to the point of healthcare delivery. And you look at the changes that came both within clinical, burn care, trauma care, infectious disease. I think nursing across all of the disciplines actually under fire created standards of care that actually went into then civilian nursing. And then you look at the leadership. I mean, when I came on active duty, there was no branch immaterial commands. Nurses weren't in command. You have nurses now that are leading at every single level. You've got nurses that are shaping policy. You've got nurses in global health, special forces, combat units. So across the board, I think there's been so much transformation that has occurred. And then, and I think we've remained true to what it means to be a nurse.
What do you envision the future, the next, 20, 30, 40 years, whether we're talking about, the drones that can go and pick somebody up off the battlefield and so many other things that are really impacting. Where do you see nursing care in the Army in the next 20 to 30 years?
I think things will just continue to accelerate. And one constant that is going to be there is I think Army nurses will be the translator from technology to humanity. And that I don't care how much we have data and how much we have innovative technology, we should never, ever lose that compassion, that connection, and that collaboration, because that's where healing, that's where healing comes. And we saw that during COVID, when we didn't have the ability to connect with each other, that lack of sense of belonging. And so I think for innovation, I think, I'm a visual, so I think it's working in an environment that is layers and layers and layers of a data-based highway where we are navigating at the speed of sound to innovate and be able to take that to improve someone's health. I think when we're on the battlefield, it's going to be contested. I think it's going to be small mobile teams. I think it's going to be chaotic. But I also think there's going to be this connection back to so much remoteness where it's going to have ethical, and Telita, you brought that. It's that ethical, moral judgment that is going to become more and more important over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, and 30 years, because I think we're going to be providing care in very diverse settings.
What advice would you give for a young Army nurse?
One, stay with our profession, because it's the best profession in the world. So that would be my biggest. I'd also, and someone gave me this guidance early in my career, and it was never forget the N on your caduceus. And we all serve as an interdisciplinary team that is so critical. But one of the things, regardless of whether you're in a nursing role, clinical role, or whether you're administrative or policy, you never forget that nursing is at the heart of who you are and how you are trained, because it will shape your decision-making across the board. And so I would say for the future that we know how to lead in chaos, remain agile, remain flexible, remain compassionate, collaborative, and to be perfectly honest, just go with the journey, because you never know where it's going to take you.
The last thing I want to talk about is the brooch that you and I are wearing. Talk about what the genesis of these are. And so many of you that are wearing this today, thank you very much. Talk about the Women of Valor.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this is, the Women of Valor is both from Phyllis and I's heart on this one. It really started with my dad, who fought World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And he was exposed to Agent Orange, Susan, like you, in Vietnam. And he ended up getting Parkinson's and macular degeneration. He was a hunter, a fisher, a carver, just an amazing man, and special forces. And he was in a wheelchair. And what I found is when we would go out, he would be like this, and someone would say, "Thank you for your service." And he'd sit just, and it gets me choked up, because I watched the soldier of who he was at the height of his service come out at that moment. And my parents, who were married 70 years, I watched the healing that occurred by the power of seeing someone, thanking someone, and connecting with someone. And I always thought that will never happen with women, because most of us probably won't have a baseball cap on, or won't have, the 3 wars, which he wore all the time. Yeah. But so literally for 20 years, it's sat on my heart. And then in the middle of 2020, called Phyllis and Nancy Pope, and I said, okay, we're going to figure this out. And we sat and we brainstormed and came up with the idea of a forget-me-not. And the purple represents jointness: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, and Coast Guard. There's a pearl in the center that recognizes a purity of mission and femininity. And then if you look around the pearl, you'll see the gold star. And that's in tribute to those that paid the ultimate sacrifice for our democracy. And the leaves are on the side of victory, valor, and veteran. And what I really want with this is I want this symbol to be so well known that people look at it and they stop, whether it's in an airport or wherever they are, and they said, "Did you serve?" And if the person's response is yes, you have the opportunity to connect and say, "Thank you for the service." And if you see someone and you connect with someone, you then can help someone. And our women veterans have a higher incidence of PTSD. They're the fastest growing homelessness rate in our country. and higher military sexual trauma, and it's an invisible population. And anybody who raised the right hand to defend our democracy, our entire nation owes it, whether you're male or female, to say, thank you so much for your service. So this symbol is worn very humbly. It's been an honor to serve, and I hope that all of you at toservetogether.org, if you go there, we have them, recognize someone with it, and all of that money goes right back into supporting women veterans with Women of Valor retreats. So thank you. Teamwork.
Thank you. Teamwork. Thank you very much, Lieutenant General Patty Horoho.
Appreciate you, Phyllis.
We had a wave going. I love it. Love that. Thank you, General. I love, I rewatched our interview just a couple of days ago just to hear your stories again. And this story about your dad and his hat, and how when somebody thanks a veteran for their incredible work and what they've done, you stand up a little bit straighter, a little bit taller. And I get it. I was that same way. I did 37 years in the Army, and thank you for your service. I'm like, what do I say? Thank you for supporting me. It was my privilege. You just feel a little, because I loved it so much. You don't have to thank me. I'm doing exactly what I want to do. But building on General Crosland's tribute to the Army nurses and the amazing 125-year legacy of Army Nurse Corps, as well as the candid and personal reflections of General Horoho, we now turn to a discussion about present and future nursing. We're fortunate to have an expert panel joining us to talk about how today's Army nurses are actively shaping the profession. The panel moderator is retired Army Colonel Dr. Kathy Spangler. She served 28.5 years as an Army nurse. I love 0.5. It doesn't say 28 and a half, it's 0.5, which made me think again about the damn drip rates again. I'm like, yeah, let's be accurate here. Advancing from frontline clinical care to senior executive leadership across operational and fixed military treatment facilities and the Department of Defense's Health Affairs. She now serves as Federal Health Mission System Lead at Maximus, driving technology-enabled solutions in support of DHA, HHS, and VA programs. Dr. Spangler will be joined by Army Nurse Corps Major David Kosakowski. Did I do okay? Okay. Who is the Chief Department of Soldier Health, Wynn Army Community Hospital at Fort Stewart, Georgia. Y'all can start coming forward. Dr. Lynette Hamlin, who is a professor and Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs and Director of the Uniformed Services University's Military Women Health Research Program, as well as Dean of the USU's Health Sciences, Dr. Kay Inouye, Graduate School of Nursing, and retired Army Nurse Corps Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Bellinger, a nurse manager and nurse anesthetist, and founder of Manage You, which focuses on hospital credentialing procedures. Please welcome Dr. Spangler and our panel of experts.
So what an honor to be here. This is happenstance, by the way. So General Burke, no, he didn't ask me, and I wish, but that's okay, Jane. It's just happenstance. I work for a company now because my passion is military health care for the warrior, their families, and for those that we serve and our retirees. And we want to make it better. I mean, that's what we do, right? And I'm with this esteemed panel, and you've heard their resume, and each of them bring different experience and a different flavor. And we want to just have a conversation. So we're going to bring it down a little level. So Major Kosakowski, because that is how you say it. Dave, you're going to be Dave today, okay? Is that okay, sir? Dave. All right. It's got to be Sarah today, and it's going to be Lynette. And we're just going to have a conversation. We wish that we could do question and answer, but I think you told me now I have 38 minutes, so you're going to keep me to time. Please, Colleen. And we want to just have a conversation because we want to hear from these awesome panelists, but we did ask at the end, there is an opportunity to reach out to them, because if you want to know more about their story and maybe how they've navigated the healthcare system and maybe what they're doing now, please reach out to them, because we wish we could take your questions, but we just don't have time today. So that being said, I'm going to kick it off because I'm going to make sure. It's a really hard act to follow, General Crosland and General Horoho and Adam Zender. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't think we're going to make you guys as tearful, but we're going to maybe, liven it up a little bit to learn about some of the things they've done. But I'm going to start, down the panel here. Dave, I won't make you go first, but you could. So given that the Army Nurse Corps focus on the past, present, and the future of nursing, what are maybe like one or two lessons from recent times that you feel that's really shaped military nursing? And I don't know, Lynette, I'm gonna pick on you first.
Happy to be picked on,
Yeah,
she says.
Yeah.
So thank you
Yeah.
for the introduction and the honor to be here today. And my focus is going to be more on military women's health research with the Army. So looking at the focus, the past, present, and future of nursing, I'd say for the past, much of the Army Nurse Corps history, women served and deployed without the benefit of research designed around their health needs. In the present, we now recognize that musculoskeletal injury, reproductive health, mental health that was talked about, and sex-based disease differences are not peripheral issues. They directly affect readiness, deployability, and retention. So in the future, I'd say addressing those gaps through deliberate, coordinated research, like the Military Women's Health Research Program, is a national defense imperative. We've learned that there are gaps in women's health research, and they've created operational blind spots, and we are at the point that we can now address them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Sarah, what's your thoughts?
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you very much for having me. I been retired and experienced a lot of these transformations within the Army Nurse Corps. I was in for 2 years in ICU nurse class when the Twin Towers started to fall, and was inspired by the leaders around me immediately, and I could see things start to change from a supportive structure where nurses had a known role within the hospital to very quickly learning the ICU, seeing all my friends go and deploy, and being alongside of them and seeing their roles change very quickly. We learned very importantly that those 5 minutes when you thought you had the greatest plan, it all changes. And I had the benefit of having executive health experience too, and the amount of things that we got to do with nursing through my career, it has been inspirational for how fast we can adapt. And I think that initially it was this big Army kind of approach. And quickly I learned those smaller teams that we now start to support, and we have over the last 20 years, have become so much more important, and that small changes can make big impact, and that I didn't know that in the beginning. I felt like the part of a bigger opportunity. But especially in anesthesia, you're standing at the head of the bed and you make those decisions, and you're quickly working with a patient that's asleep. So the Army teaches you that very, very soundly, and I didn't expect that when I came in, and I was honored to be a part of it.
Awesome, thank you. We realized, by the way, when you guys have all done it in this room, you look at, like, how do I know you? I know you from somewhere. And I was one of the working for then Colonel Horoho at Walter Reed, and that's where Sarah and I crossed paths with the many visits we had, because I think you were at the White House medical unit at that time. So you did that. How do I know you?
I was the nurse the first time that presidential unit came. I was like, I don't want to go. I don't know what's going on over there.
All right, Dave. So you've served now, I think you're at 15 years almost, right? So you've got some stories to tell. What are some lessons?
What I've noticed probably I've been in too terribly long, maybe the 15 years I've been in. When I first joined, it was, go to the unit, work on the ward. Throughout my career, about 8 of my years have been, half of that, part of that is in the 173rd Airborne, at another stint with 2nd Security Forces Brigade, and a little bit of time at USASOC as an instructor. And For my career, it's changed from that inpatient nursing. I know we say prolonged casualty care, prolonged field care a lot, but really it's shifted where those skills I learned on the floor really have brought it to the forefront, especially when you hear anything. I know drones had already been brought up previously, and how we have to move as a small force, and you can't have a large area or a large footprint anymore. And those prolonged casualty care skills that you learn on the floor that we would consider basic nursing skills, and having instructed a bunch of people, we consider them very basic, but that's really what needs to be out there. And I've noticed that the critical thinking skills that you learned and the flexibility we learned at that level really translates to the line units. When I say like the force comm units that I've served in, it really goes beyond that, where we've transitioned from being the one at the bedside to being a leader there on the ground, closer and closer to the front. And that's the lesson I've really learned, is the things that I've picked up even at the beginning of my career that I've handed off to combat medics and even other medical specialties when it comes to medication administration, things that we just do. We talked about the drip factors earlier, and it's a very important thing that we take for granted until you're actually there and you have to do it.
Yeah, I told him I was gonna, so based off ages in the audience, that many times as nurses we had to MacGyver things, right? So anybody under the age of 40, you're under the age of 40, right?
No.
He's not. He wasn't. But he's 41, there you go. But you have to be able to be, agile, and you have to think outside the box. And I do think that's kind of goes to my next question. We're going to talk about nurses as force multipliers, which we've already heard about. So again, nurses, you hear that. Nurses are those force multipliers that are out there. What do you all think that means in practical terms regarding readiness and mission success? How would you elaborate? Oh, Dave, what do you think?
So I have a really great mentor. I help instruct a lot, and one of the things that I've always been taught since the beginning was to be a can-do officer. So as an Army nurse, term always uses, I'm not just a nurse, I'm an Army officer. So in my experience, I've been not just the patient holo IC that doctrinally says that's what I do in a role too, but you have to be a liaison sometimes. You have to pass out medications, of instructed ranges, of TC'd vehicles, all the normal soldier stuff that you just expect other people to do. It's more than, it's the flexibility and the critical thinking skills take you, it's not just nursing stuff. You can apply those same skills to other parts of being in the Army, but for me, it's all those things moving forward. In my current role, I do a ton of work with medical readiness with like 3rd Infantry Division, and being part of that and helping them with whether it's a profile review board, which is primarily a provider-focused thing, but just being a nurse and being there to answer the call, whatever that is that they need me to do in that moment, that's what it is.
Sure. Sarah?
Well, I think there's a double-edged sword, right, with everything that comes out. So we have all the new AI tools that we're all learning, and then, of course, the real-time wearables and translating. We talked about that. We've had a lot of really fun times getting to know each other before here, and it's been amazing to see the different span of opportunity. The last thing I would say is that some of that, it can have a negative impact, and so just being sure that we're giving it, attention to the detail of how it impacts the team, and knowing that we're trying to get to the battlefield and to be able to have those quick experiences and translate them backwards.
Sure. Lynette?
Thank you. I love this question.
I know you do.
So I think when military nurses extend impact, because you are the experts in translating frontline clinical insight into actionable research and policy. Through programs like Military Women's Health Research, you as nurses help ensure fewer lost days from preventable injuries, improved deployability, and better informed command and decision-making. So when nurses identify problems early, generate evidence, and move it into practice, nurses multiply the effectiveness of the entire force. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm gonna freak them out. We have questions, right? Going to the next one. I'm skipping one because I want to make sure we get to something near and dear to my heart, and talking about nurses and burnout, but we're going to do it at the end. So, Sarah, I'm going to start with you. We're going to talk about the rapid advancement of technology and the explosion of health data, which I know you all are overwhelmed with. How do you see this data integration having the greatest impact on that patient-centered care, right? And also taking care of our teammates, right? How do you see that with all the wearables that we're doing, overall population health? You know, where do you think we should go, or how are we getting there?
So Manage You is the app that I built. It was led by all of the continuous problems that we've had with credentialing. So everything from working for then Colonel Odegaard at Tripler and getting in trouble because my lieutenant's nursing license expired, to 20 years later managing COVID and getting getting staff members credentialed quickly so that they could work in the hospital. And we just show up with our 6-sided folder. And so 20 plus times I've been credentialed, and that seems like 20 times I've had to turn in my CPR card and my nursing license, prime source verification, all of these things that they slow down the process, and then the patients don't get the care from the people they need more quickly. And so that's where I developed a tool that you can use as the provider who has those cards in order to forward them and more quickly get verified and start to work. And so that came out of my Army time, all the times being a manager and trying to get people to where they needed to be most quickly. Efficiently protecting their information, I learned that from the Army too. We talk about it like it wasn't a big deal, but the amount of fraud that happens with credit cards alone, then think about that being your credential. So applying those different opportunities to and all of the things that are now available from health tech to things that make it better for us. And so you don't see that when we're in active duty in the Army as much as you do when you get retired. Sure. You have the opportunity to retire and see it. And so I went a different route. I went to business school instead of to more nursing school. And I ended up figuring out that we can do these things. And the only reason I could was because of the Army.
You went the route on helping your teammates and using technology to an advantage. That's awesome. Have any of you or Dave, have you seen any of the new technology that's been displayed out there, some of the wearables, or maybe you see, man, I wish I had the whatchamacallit, whatever that is?
So I've seen some of it in theory, even talking with what Sarah was talking about when it comes to even transferring credentialing packets. I've done 6 combat training center rotations, and every time we do, I have to remind providers to make sure they send their packet forward to the actual MTF there. But for me, in the field, the most important thing that we usually work with technology-wise of wearables, and that would help us with, is like the EHR. It's always a challenge, especially when we're trying to work with paper. Paper is great. It's always going to be the go-fall to, but when you're working in a contested environment or in the field, things get wet. Writing doesn't get very legible in a trauma situation. So anything that we could get to decrease the amount of time that I have to worry about transferring information, or even something simple going to the field and putting it on a piece of paper to upload it for our soldiers that are there on regular care, becomes a challenge, because if it's not in your record when it's time for you to retire, that also becomes problematic. But for actual field care, being able to, as you progress through the roles of care, instead of handing a piece of paperwork, hopefully, to a medic who's flying them out, and being able to have that populated in the record, anything that would do that would improve what we're able to do.
Awesome. Well, just so you know, I mean, some of us, I don't know if you guys still do it, you take the paper towel and you write the vitals on it when the patient comes in. I'm sure nobody does that anymore. But we're getting to the point where, you still do that?
No, I've seen usually it was always the IV packaging or whatever.
The IV packaging, fair.
And the trash.
Then the trash, yes. But no, I mean, technology is making its wave, and it's making its wave into military healthcare, and we're starting to see it. And I know that for a fact, and for those of us that are at the policy level, working their way down, working with different agencies, it's coming. And some individuals have a little bit more of it than others, but eventually it will be the wave of the future. And we need to be able to do that prolonged field care, take care of that soldier, sailor, airman, the guardian. Did I get it? I don't know. I'm getting there. Making sure that they get the care that they deserve and when they need it quickly. Lynette, did you have anything to add?
I can add a little. As a nurse midwife getting ready to renew my credentials at Walter Reed, I need you. As a nurse scientist, of course I can sit up here and say I love data, but as we look at all of this and where it's going, technology seems to be the buzzword. And I think the greatest impact of all of this is closing these long-standing gaps, especially now that we've recognized sex-based differences in injury prevention, in treatment, and recovery. I have to put a plug in for our database. We have a military women's health research database that sits at USU, It has, I think we're up to 580 entries of all the DoD-funded research on military women's health, our presentations, our publications, et cetera, and data integration. And we've got a great biostatistician who's now doing infographics, combining all of that data and the research. And the first one we just put out was on women's mental health and trauma, so we do have those. But I think the big piece about this is that nursing leadership informs decisions that matters at the bedside and at the command levels, and that technology creates data, and being careful how we use it, and ensuring that it improves our outcomes and our readiness.
Wonderful. I'm starting to see a theme. Nurses are the integrators, right? We seem to come up with some of those great shiny new ideas, and we start at the beginning and try to get it to the end and make sure it happens. So exciting. Okay, so here's the question I really want. I'm thinking our audience wants to hear a little bit more about all this data integration. Our military nurses are looking at the whole health approach to help improve that overall force resilience, the burnout, performance, readiness across the continuum of care. I mean, what can we do? I mean, this is a question that, my career often, a lot of times, my civilian teammates, my active duty teammates are like, ma'am, I can't do another day of X, Y, Z, or I've had enough. Or I've heard this even here, we don't have enough folks to help take care of the patient. How am I gonna do it? How am I gonna be creative? How do I make sure that we keep our patients safe and we keep our teammates safe? What am I gonna do about this? Because this is a real thing. How are we addressing burnout? And I wanted to kind of come down, I'm gonna start with you though, Sarah, in regards to burnout. What are something that you see, maybe your experience, and maybe that you're doing now that you've helped address burnout?
So I would say burnout is real. Hard stop, and we need to talk about it, and we need to find out things that work for each other, and they're not all going to be the same. So my primary way that people have helped me, my leaders, my teammates, has been to actually understand each other and communicate, to form those tools where you know about them and say, are you okay? Or if they're having changes in behavior where you can know that something's off, just listen, just stop and say, are you okay? And then don't talk. And I think that it's important, anesthesia school, the White House, lots of opportunities for burnout, but I've always had my favorite and my most relatable leaders have been the ones that asked me what I wanted to do, and then they helped me make it happen. I told my boss when I came out of anesthesia school, I want to deploy as soon as I can. And he said, what? I'm like, whenever I get to a year, I want to deploy. I didn't get to do it yet. And he was like, okay. And then at 1 year and 1 month, he came up to me and said, okay, here's the email. Go, I'll get you out of the OR so you can do it. And I didn't know that he had listened to me. It had been a year since we talked about it. And he listened, and just knowing that somebody had my back was the biggest thing. And as a leader through COVID, I found that it really is important to get to know exactly all your nurse anesthetists, to be able to relate to them and know where their problems are. And that kept every single one of us there putting in central lines, doing intubations through all the hours of days for years. So, and checking back in with those people is how you learn that that is actually the thing that prevents it. It's not another checklist, although I love them. It's, trying to make sure that we communicate with each other. And if there's a problem, let somebody know.
Thank you. Authentic leadership, right? Like getting to know your team, getting to know the people you're working with that are around you, understanding how you complement one another, or maybe you have a little friction, but sometimes that friction's good, but just trying to be human and get to know one another. The mask didn't help during COVID, not at all, because you can't see the full effect, but we figured it out, and I think that's key, I think I learned that early on from a lot of good mentors is, how are you doing today? No, really, how are you doing today? And really taking that time, which is busy. Our senior leaders here, they are busy, but they do take the time. And my senior NCOs, I won't forget, I got a lot of my awesome NCOs in the audience that are part of that team, and my civilian teammates, back to that triad of making sure that it's that whole approach that we're coming together. Those are the tools that I think are gonna help burnout. It's really hard to truly give a trick question, because it's really hard to address burnout, period, except to address burnout, to at least talk about it. Lynette, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think one of nursing's strengths is our whole health approach, and I think one of our weaknesses is our whole health approach, because we are the caregivers and we take care of everybody else before putting ourselves first. And one of the themes that I've learned the last couple of years is, how do we have empathy for ourselves? We're great at having empathy for our clients, our family, our colleagues, but when we look at ourselves, what do? Most of us, at least me, beat myself up. Instead of having empathy, what would I say to somebody else in the same situation? It's that kindness. It's that watching out for all of us, because I think whole health must include us as caregivers, because readiness can't be sustained if we are not the nursing workforce that we need to be.
I agree. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you're going to help others. Key. Dave, any thoughts?
I think for burnout, it's important to look at readiness beyond what we see on like MedPros or a checklist for deployment. I know it's easy to focus on that and worry about somebody's deployable, but there's more to it than just those things. It's important to have people on. When it's time to be on, we need to be on. But whenever you don't have to be going 100%, it's important to give people an opportunity to decompress. However, they do that in a constructive manner, obviously. But look at everybody individually. Sometimes it seems it's even in the most stressful situations, if it's just taking that time to take 2 seconds and give somebody, even if they're just frustrated, soldiers are going to get the job done, right? Government civilians I work with, great people, they're going to get the job done. Sometimes they just need to be able to be heard on what they have to say. They got to say their piece and hear their frustration, let them vent for a little bit, and let them decompress to really make that difference, because it's easy to get caught in the moment, and it's very important for us to take care of people, and we, as nurses, get stuck there and think that we always have to do more. Sometimes you just have to take a step back, and great leaders are going to take that time to stop and let you do those things like these ladies have already explained.
I learned from some pretty amazing folks, understanding that why we're doing it, our purpose, and just remembering it and repeating it over and over again. What a privilege and an honor it is to serve our nation, right? But what a privilege and honor it is to serve with the people who are serving our nation, taking care of our warriors. See, I get goosebumps every time I say it. Their family members, retirees. It's not just something we say. I think it's something that everybody in this audience feels. And, that's just such an honor. And every day I think, man, and when I knew I was going to come and get to see a lot of you all, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I know Anita McCowan's way back there. She was one of my very first head nurses chief nurse in Heidelberg, who pretty much gave me and said, I need you to get your stuff. She never cussed, by the way. I need you to get it together, Spangler. Because I was having those pity party times, and I was like, oh man. And then I worked for now General Horoho, and she's like, I need you to get your stuff together, Spangler. And then I worked for Crosland. Come on, Spangler. And it's funny, because we need those people to keep picking us up and keep refocusing us and helping us know our purpose, our mission, and why we're here. Even though we got to put our oxygen mask on ourselves, it's not about us, it's about them and what we do. So, sorry, see, I'll get teary-eyed. We're gonna go to the teary-eyed section. All right, this is my last question, because I know expectation management to you all, and this is just to kind of leave all of the folks here just some of your wisdom, because you guys all come from different aspects, different areas, whether it's academia. I want to say, Sarah, you're now not just doing CRNA. I mean, you're also innovative. You've got your app. Dave, you're currently serving, and you've been between operational and clinical. You guys all come from a different background and have so many great experiences. So let's just do this. Where's General Holcomb? What's your 5-year plan? No. You guys know that no, General Holcomb. What's your 5-year plan? No. Looking ahead 5 to 10 years, what's some words of wisdom you would offer our Army nurse teammates that are in the audience about the future of military nursing, technology, and the overall Army Nurse Corps? What do y'all think? All right, Lynette, I'm gonna let you start.
I guess people are looking at me. I've been saying lately in this role that everybody's been doing such great work in military women's health research, but we've been in silos because we don't know who each other is. So that, as my daughter says, funnest is not a word, Mom, but the funnest part of this role is connecting everybody and building strengths. So I think in looking ahead, women's health research is going to drive how technology improves readiness. Nursing-led research is going to shape policy and care delivery. And lastly, strategic advantage will come from sustained evidence in military women's health research.
Thank you. Thank you. Sarah.
I had two concepts about how to move forward, and I think one is about reflecting backwards. I mean, we don't want to live in the past, and the future is going to come a lot quicker than it used to feel. One, because we're getting older, and two, because technology is moving that fast. But we have these amazing opportunities. First, make sure that you keep in touch with the people that you know. I have more than one person I've known for 27 years in this audience today, and that's pretty awesome. Thank you. And then also making sure that you are then keeping up with moving forward. We don't learn to use a lot of these tools when we're in the military because we don't. And I caught up, and I found that there were a lot of interesting things that can help us do our jobs better. And it's been incredible to be able to do anesthesia and to do health tech. And I'm looking forward to seeing where the future goes.
Thank you. Dave?
I mean, I would say that the future's bright. If you're an Army nurse and you want to do something besides, traditional bedside nursing, and that's what you want to do, and you want to go to research, you can do that. The opportunities are way greater even when I came in. If you want to go more with an operational approach that I am, those positions are there. We're always moving closer, in my opinion, to the forward line of troops. The more that we realize that we need to take care of people longer, the more nursing is going to be involved in that. For a younger nurse coming in, realize you can learn something from anybody. Some of the best things I ever learned were from an MSA, like a medical support assistant, or an LPN who'd been doing it for 25 years. Just realize you can learn things from anybody going forward, and you can apply those same things, whether it's nursing care or just regular officership. Those things will carry you through to the end where you want to get to.
So thank you guys, every one of you all were part of this panel, really helping us form this. What I'm going to leave you with, and man, General Burke's going to laugh. We heard this a lot. Feedback is a gift, right? That is given to us over and over again. It's what you do with that feedback, that constructive criticism. Never did I ever tell my senior leaders that they were wrong, ever, maybe a lot. And that because of that ego and that I know what I'm talking about. I think as we've gotten older, things that I want to impart on folks is, you know what? I learned, like you said, I learned from the brand new lieutenant that just came in who just said, did you mean to say it that way or look that way? And I'm like, I did not. And, giving me feedback and having the courage, the personal courage to come up in a respectful way saying, well, ma'am, this is how it came across. I'm like, I'm sorry. But even in my current job, I don't know the answer. I'm going to find out, though, because remember, I know people who know people who know people. That's about the only thing I got, by the way, everybody. And that's like my only superpower. That's the only one. But I think I'm going to end it with just being human and being kind. And as technology is here, but keeping that human in the loop and making sure that we, the ones at the bedside, I mean, it hasn't changed, ma'am, since the very beginning. Not that you, ma'am, not that you were in the beginning of it, but you get my point. It's still the nurses at the bedside trying to take care of each other and take care of that corpsman, that medic, working as a team with our civilian teammates. It's all of us coming together to give the best care available to anybody. And our academia world helping us make that go forward. So just keep moving in the right direction. Stay human, stay real. And I'd like to give a big round of applause to this incredible panel because they were hand-selected to help represent Army Nurse Corps with 125 years. So. Did we do on time? We're 1 minute over. Look.
Well done. And I have, because I'm a warrant officer, told my senior leadership they were wrong, only because I was a warrant. This was really fantastic. And to wrap up this tremendous event, please join me in welcoming Dr. Bonnie Kem, Assistant Provost and Founding Dean of the College of Nursing and Health Sciences at Columbia Southern University, a college built by nurses for nurses. She is the immediate past president and a current member of the Missouri State Board of Nursing, where she has helped lead statewide efforts to strengthen the nursing workforce and expand access to nursing education. During her tenure, Missouri became the first state in the nation to create a direct pathway allowing Air Force medics who achieved the 5 skill level to sit for the LPN exam. which supported more than 1,000 veterans in beginning meaningful nursing careers. She also serves on the Board of Commissioners for the National League of Nursing, Commission for the Nursing Education Accreditation. And she's also presented internationally at major nursing conferences, including the International Council of Nurses and the Royal College of Nursing. Welcome, Dr. Bonnie Kim.
Well, I'm going to start as thank you for your service. What an amazing day. Seriously. Outstanding. Outstanding. It has been an honor to be with you and to celebrate 125th anniversary of the Army Nurse Corps, a milestone that reminds us just how deeply military nurses have shaped our profession and our nation. So while I was listening to today's speakers, the amazing panelists and everybody brought forward, the historians, our leaders, our living legend, I found myself reflecting on how military nursing has not only influenced our country, but also has unexpectedly influenced my own career. So I grew up and trained as a nurse in St. Louis, Missouri, right along the great Mississippi River. And if you've ever lived, anybody ever lived in a border community where, you know, rivers don't divide people, they tie us together and they connect us. Much like Virginia and DC here, we've got the Potomac. Missouri and Illinois has the Mississippi. So people live on one side, they work on the other, and the river becomes a thread that ties the communities together. So early in my career, I was working as a pediatric nurse, and I heard a story that stayed with me. An up-and-coming senator from Illinois had asked his state and the nursing regulators to create a pathway recognizing the medical training of enlisted military service members and veterans. His goal? Help them transition more quickly into nursing roles. It struck me as such a smart, forward-thinking idea. These were individuals, as we heard today, caring for patients in some of the most highest stakes environments imaginable. Why wouldn't we honor that skill? But Illinois couldn't find a way to make it work, and the idea eventually disappeared. Years passed. That senator moved to the White House, and I found myself appointed by the governor to the Missouri State Board of Nursing and elected president. And I'll tell you, that idea about supporting our military personnel never left my mind. So I thought, why not Missouri? So we got to work, rolled up our sleeves, and as nurses, we found a way to make it happen. Missouri, as you heard, became the first state in the nation to create a direct pathway allowing Air Force personnel, we're not stopping with Air Force, we're going Army, who achieved the 5-skill level to sit for the LPN exam to become licensed nurses. And as today, we have more than 1,200 veterans that have used that pathway to begin meaningful careers in nursing. I share this story because a good idea is a good idea, especially when it honors service and it strengthens our nation. And that is the heart of what we celebrate today. The Army Nurse Corps was founded 125 years ago, marking the first official entry of women into the U.S. military. Those early Army nurses weren't just caregivers, they were pioneers. They pushed boundaries. They defined military nursing. And they shaped the future of military medicine across every branch of service. Through the Military Women's Memorial Serving and Strength series, we're reminded today that military nurses stand on the shoulders of those trailblazers. Their legacy is alive in every nurse who deploys, every nurse who leads, and every nurse who mentors the next generation. The amazing discussions today showed us that military nursing, Army nursing, isn't only a proud history, it remains a strategic national asset. Military nurses are essential to operational readiness, force resilience, and health security. They lead, as we heard from our amazing panelists, in research, innovation, the complex demands of military medicine. So as the founding dean of a college of nursing built by nurses for nurses, I see every day how the military and civilian worlds intersect. And I'm also honored to be joined today by my colleagues from Columbia Southern University. So I'm going to embarrass you and just give a wave and stand up. Dr. Mike Perry is here. He is the Chief Master Sergeant retired and founding dean of the College of, wait for it, Space, Intelligence, and Military Operations. Pretty cool. And Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force retired, Joe Bass. Chief Bass, your historic tenure as the first woman to serve as the senior enlisted leader of a military branch, the highest enlisted rank in our armed forces, continues to inspire. Your presence here alongside Dr. Perry reflects the powerful ways our military and civilian institutions learn from one another and grow stronger together. That shared strength exists because of the standard of excellence set by our living legend, Brigadier General Clara Adams-Onder, whose pioneer leadership paved that way. And when we build bridges, like the pathway we created in Missouri, we honor the legacy of the Army Nurse Corps in a very real, and I think as the panelists said, a very human way. So, as we celebrate 125 years of Army nursing, let us carry that legacy forward by supporting veterans transitioning into nursing, by expanding educational pathways, and by preserving and sharing these stories so future generations understand their impact on our profession and on our nation. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this celebration. And thank you, Phyllis and the Military Women's Memorial, for preserving the histories that ground us. But most of all, thank you to the Army nurses, past, present, and future, whose service inspires us all. Thank you.
And yes, we do know that Colonel Jenkins' promotion is coming up shortly. We're tracking. We're almost done here, folks. Hang on. You will not miss Colonel Jenkins' promotion to 1-star, which happens at 1 o'clock, an Army nurse becoming a 1-star today on this great day. So thanks, Dr. Kem, for those closing remarks. Many thanks to all of you that have joined us here, both in person and those that took the time to stream us virtually. Thank you again. I hope this was impactful to all of us. We'd like another round of applause, though, for our amazing speakers. And all of our incredible sponsors from TriWest, Maximus, Johnson & Johnson, Optum, AARP, WPS Health Solutions, and Humana Military. They made this serving in strength, hands, head and heart program possible. If you haven't already seen it, please take a moment. We have some very special nurses' uniforms on display right behind here. We'll be moving the black. You can see those. They range from, and I want to hear how you feel about one of these particular uniforms. They range from World War I, World War II, the 1950s, the hot weather fatigues of the 70s, and that oh-so-charming mint green uniform of the late 70s and 80s. There's also exhibits there with needles that had to be autoclaved. They didn't do sharps. You got them, you sharpened your own needles to reuse. And lastly, if you are a military woman, past or present, or you know one, we have these amazing cards of a young nurse that served in Vietnam with her memorable experience on here. And on the back is a QR code for you to create your own story and tell it here into our national database. Doesn't do any good. We can't tell, like these stories here, what we don't know. Put your story in, and if not today, on the 125th anniversary of the Army Nurse Corps nurses, when are you going to do it? And if you have registered and it's not full, take the time to update it, add more information to it. We have moved all of your coats down to this end because we didn't want to impact Colonel Jenkins' ceremony, and there's all of that. And without further ado, I just want to thank you all and say happy 125th, and let's look forward to the next 125. Go nurses.